Hello Rebrand gang, and welcome to episode 20 of Rebrand Everything. Can you believe it is episode 20 already? 20 weeks, 20 videos. Today we're going to be creating 5 logo options for Bing, and then at the end we'll have the poll like usual so you can vote for your favourite. Let's go. So let's get started by looking at the history of the Bing logo. From 2009 until 2013 the Bing logo looked like this. Then from 2013 to 2016, the Bing logo looked like this. Then from 2016 until now, the logo looks like this. As you can see, the later version of the logo has got a capital B on the word mark, and they've changed some of the features on the icon. I did some research on Wikipedia into the history of the logo and the company itself, and found out that the name was chosen as it's short, easy to remember, and it would remind people of the sound made during the moment of discovery and decision making. So I guess it's like Bing, like getting an idea above your head or finding something out, I guess. That's what they mean by that, which is all obviously fitting and good for a search engine. I think the B icon has been designed with it in mind that it will fit with the other Microsoft icons. But in my opinion, the angles of the icon are very sharp and it gives the icon quite an aggressive feel. Then the font that's used next to it is very clear and easy to read, but it just feels so standard and like non-aggressive that it doesn't share anything with the style of the icon, and therefore it seems to clash with the style of the icon. I started by looking for a nice way of presenting the letter B, and at this point I wasn't too worried whether that was lowercase or uppercase because they obviously use both in their logo at the moment. As with any logo that uses the letter B, the first thing that pops into your head always ends up looking a little bit too much like the Beats by Dre logo, because it's just kind of so easy to draw and it just seems to flow so well. And it's got all the nice shapes, but obviously you don't want that because everyone just says, oh, it looks like the Beats by Dre logo. As I was developing up the ideas, I also felt the need to include this super cliche idea where we somehow incorporate a magnifying glass into the icon, obviously to relate to the fact that it's a search engine. I know it's super cheesy and super cliche, but I thought maybe we could get something that works. As I got deeper into the sketching, I started to think more about the actual user experience and what you actually do on the website, and how when you're using it, it gives you information about anything at any time. So I started thinking down that route. I started thinking along the lines of some concepts such as like filling in the blanks, and then that led me on to thinking about some negative space logos to kind of visually represent this. Also, as I'd read on Wikipedia about one of the facts that they chose the name Bing is because it was like the sound it makes when you discover something, I started thinking about how I could add some sort of sound icon into one of the options. If you like this video, please remember to press like on it, it will really help the channel out. And if you want to see more videos like this every single week, I upload on Saturdays. Press subscribe and then press the little bell so you get a notification when I upload. Cheers. So for our first option, I wanted to create something with a similar style to the current logo so that it was more of an evolution rather than completely rethinking the whole logo. So I started by grabbing 2 hexagons and then I split them down the middle using the Pathfinder palette. I explored some options of how to differentiate the 2 sides of the hexagons. I started thinking about using colour or tints to make the clear divide, but then I thought it looked a little bit dated and also just didn't know how I would make that work when it needed to be just single colour. So I changed the feel of that to a stroke, which not only looked better, but then it also meant it would work very well when it was used just in black and white or any other colour. If it was on their current homepage, they use a white logo on top of a picture. The stroke version worked very well with that, whereas it wouldn't be quite as clear with the filled version. The icon still retains the sharp angles of the existing logo, but now the icon shows a capital B which matches up with the word mark. So the outcome of this logo, I think it looks like a sort of 3D B, and it also looks like a diamond or a jewel maybe a little bit. So the double meaning could be something along the lines of find valuable information with Bing. I don't know, it might be clutching at straws or looking for meaning when it's not there, but I just thought it could be a nice tie-in. So for option 2, I wanted to somehow incorporate a magnifying glass in the least cliche and cheesy possible way. So I looked for a font that had the most circular cutout inside the B, so I had a good starting point for the shape of the magnifying glass. And then I added a line at 45 degrees, which basically became the handle of the new magnifying glass icon that we've managed to create inside the B. Once I'd outlined the B, I noticed that the circle inside wasn't actually a perfect circle. So I created a perfect circle to replace this, and then it made the outer part of the B look a little bit wrong where that wasn't a perfect circle. So I duplicated the inner circle, made that larger to fit the shape of the outside of the B, and basically created our own custom B out of shapes rather than using the font. Just sort of used the font as a guide. I felt like the handle was breaking the flow of the overall letter and just looking a little bit weird. So I duplicated the outer shape and then I pasted that in front, and then I put a stroke on that and then set the stroke to inside the path. And that's just retained that strong outer edge shape that I feel like it needed. When I was playing around with positioning the icon with the word mark, I added another shape behind it, as I thought that kind of helped give it a little bit more detail and make a little bit more visual interest. But ultimately, after playing around with that for a little while, I decided that this was overcomplicating it and it would make it look too busy when it was down at small sizes. Like if you're going to look at it on a mobile phone, which probably most people will be now, when it's only that sort of big on the screen, you don't want too much detail. So I thought simplifying it was better. For option 3, I wanted to create a logo that implied the shape of a capital B through the use of negative space. I started out by seeing if cutting a shape from a box could work, but it started to look like something from 2005 and just a little bit messy. So I had another look back at my sketches and thought that the simplest idea ever might work. I found a font with some quite large like cutouts or apertures in the inside of the B, and then I converted this to outlines, and then I just deleted the outer shape. And this left me with just the 2 cutouts. This doesn't always work with all letters, but because you've got quite big holes in the B, it seemed to work. There was just enough shape left that it was still recognisable as a B. I positioned this to the left of the word mark and then resized it to make sure it was positioned in a way that had some sort of alignment to the text. Also tried a second version where I cut some of the word mark away to further enhance the negative B shape, but I felt like that was removing some of the coolness and the confidence from the logo. Option 4 needed to somehow incorporate sound into the icon. So I looked through my sketches and saw a speaker/volume icon idea that I thought could work nicely. The idea was to incorporate a capital B shape inside the speaker part of the loudspeaker icon. So once I'd drawn out the basic shapes, I needed to skew them into position. I was using the free transform tool and snap to grid to make sure it was all accurate, but I was having trouble getting both the top and the bottom into the right position. So I deleted the bottom, transformed the top until I was happy, and then duplicated and flipped this to ensure it was all symmetrical. And that was just a really good way of getting it accurate and making sure everything was perfect, rather than keep fiddling around trying to get that top point in the right spot, because every time I moved the bottom one up it was jumping and just giving me trouble. So I thought that was a quicker, easier way, where I only had to do all the manipulation once and then I can duplicate it. I also tried using a few circles just hidden behind a white box to make it look like sound waves coming out of the speaker. When I put both versions side by side, with and without the sound waves, I felt like the sound waves weren't really adding any value to the design and they were kind of just making it look more complicated for no reason. I did also notice on this option that the font that I'd chosen, the G, had that same sort of circular style as the very first logo that Bing had. It probably doesn't really matter too much, but maybe it's nice to have some sort of connection there. And I'm just glad that our logo doesn't look as stretched as their first logo. When I was looking at negative space options for one of the earlier options, I had another idea spring to mind that added a little bit more fun and personality to the logo. I started thinking that the negative parts of the B maybe look like sunglasses or eyes, so what if I added a line where the hard edge of the B is, and that could maybe double up as the mouth on the little character. I know it's a little bit crazy, but I just thought I'll run with it anyway. Once developed, I tried rotating it 90 degrees so that it was the right way up, but then I felt like it didn't really come across at all like a B anymore. It just looked like a weird face icon, and it didn't look enough like a B to really be relevant, so I left it on its side and put it inside a box. Although it's a little bit crazy, I feel like there's enough to work with here, and maybe you could extend that across the rest of the brand. Okay then, Rebrand gang, before we see our final options, I just wanted to remind you to like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more like this, put the bell on if you want to get a notification every time I upload, and remember to vote by pressing the button up here and your options will come up, and vote for your favourite. Let's see what we got. Cheers!